I'm back with another video. One of my favorite winter activities is photographing and watching birds. One of the best places to do that? The state of Florida. Here we go. Florida is known for a number of things. Two of them are, one, old people, and two, birds. Lots of both in Florida. Not everybody's into bird watching. It's kind of a nerd activity. You're out there with a bunch of people walking around with binoculars, funny looking little hats, and a bunch of bird books. I can't dispute that. And for that reason, people tend to make fun of bird watching as if it is not a real wildlife experience. There are about 96 million people who either fed, photographed, visited parks, watched birds. So I say all that to say this. Stop disrespecting the bird people. One of the premier locations in the state of Florida, if not the United States of America, to see birds is Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. Merritt Island is 140,000 acres set aside for wildlife. There are several mammals and some amphibians that live on Merritt Island, but most of the occupants in and around Merritt Island are birds. Merritt Island is on the Space Coast. It is 12 miles from the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral. In fact, it is a good idea for those who wish to visit Merritt Island, check the launch schedule. If there's a launch scheduled on Cape Canaveral, for security reasons, Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge will shut down. Merritt Island is less than an hour from Orlando, Florida. It is 8 miles from I-95. It was established as a National Wildlife Refuge in 1963. There are over 350 species of birds that live on Merritt Island alone. I packed up my tent on wheels and made that trip down I-95. You're going to exit I-95 into the town of Titusville, Florida. Just a few miles from there, about 8 miles, you're going to cross the bridge onto Merritt Island. You're going to come to the Black Point Wildlife Drive. The Black Point Wildlife Drive is a 7-mile gravel road that passes through a large part of the refuge. As you enter the Black Point Wildlife Drive, you're going to come to a pay station. It is $10 per day. You can go through this loop as many times as you want. The best times to spot wildlife, especially birds. It is true, the early bird gets the worm. Go early in the morning and go in the afternoons. I would suggest going to Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge between mid-November and mid-February. There is wildlife there year-round. However, if you go in the spring and summer, a lot of those things you see flying around aren't birds, they're mosquitoes. Don't say that you weren't warned. I carry a birding checklist. I also carry a birding guide book so I can identify a lot of things that I see. And although there are several things that I do recognize and actually some things that I actually come out and look for, it's always helpful to have an identification book. I'm driving through the refuge. One of the first things I see are these American avocets. Then I see snowy egrets, and then I see tricolored herons, and I see ibis. I see white ibis. I see glossy ibis. There's a variety of birds just all over the place. But I gotta tell you, one of the reasons I came to Merritt Island specifically is because I know this is where I'm going to find, or at least where I hope to find, roseate spoonbill. People will often mistake them for flamingos. However, if you take a good look at them, you see what gives them their name, that big spoonbill on the front of their faces. In the 19th century, spoonbills were hunted for their plumage. People wanted them so they could stuff their feathers in their hats, and because of that, they almost wiped them out. However, they are making a comeback and actually growing in number. You'll find spoonbills in Texas, Louisiana, Florida. We are now starting to see some populations of spoonbills in South Georgia and coastal South Carolina. Spoonbills stand about 30 inches tall, has a 50-inch wingspan. It's a large bird, but even as large as they appear, they only weigh about 5 pounds. Most of them are that big spoonbill and those beautiful pink feathers. They are one of the reasons why I drove all the way down here, and I could watch them for hours. And yes, I am going to do just that. And although I am fascinated with roseate spoonbills, there are a number of things here that I really enjoy seeing. I always see a large number of blue-winged teal. Ducks come in two forms, divers and dabblers. Blue-winged teal are dabblers. Their feet tend to be in the centers of their body, makes it easier for them to walk on land. They don't totally submerge in the water. They feed with their heads down and their butts in the air. Diving ducks are like this canvasback. Their feet tend to be toward the backs of their bodies, and they submerge completely underwater to feed. They're powerful swimmers. They're a little awkward on land. So there we go, the dabblers versus divers duck talk. I'm gonna make you all a bunch of nerds yet. There are a number of birds in the heron family. There are tricolored herons. Stands about 2 feet tall with their adult plumage. They are blue and white. They're very striking birds. The largest of the heron species that you're going to see, at least in this area, is the great blue heron. Great blue heron are spread throughout the United States. Actually, you'll see great blue heron in a number of places in the world. I have seen great blue heron in South Africa. They can stand about 4 feet tall. Some of them have wingspans of over 6 feet. Also part of the heron family are egrets. The great egret, which is also a pure white bird. Then there's the snowy egret, which is actually very striking. They have bright yellow claws, and when the wind blows, it really appears as if he or she is having a bad hair day. One of the cool things about bird watching and birds in general, specifically waterfowl, is you can find several species in the same place, and it does not appear to be a problem. Wouldn't it be really cool if people could do that? I'm just saying, yeah, I know we're much smarter than these animals because we have the ability to reason. However, they have figured out some stuff that we haven't. Just saying. Come to this little spot here. I see snowy egrets. I see great egrets. I see roseate spoonbills. There are tricolored herons in here. There's a blue heron in here. And then this dude shows up. This is a brown pelican, and although he is not a problem for the other birds, he does take up a lot of space, and all of a sudden he clears some of the other birds out. I came across a reddish egret, a beautiful bird. Also looks like he might be in the midst of a bad hair day. Something about reddish egrets that are different from other egrets and herons. They do an elaborate dance while they're hunting. They do this to cast a shadow and reduce the glare so they can better see their prey in the water. Kind of interesting to watch. 2 types of ibis. There's white ibis and there's glossy ibis. They hang out together. Then there's Mr. Anhinga. Looks like he's wearing a cape. He's a diving bird. He dives in the water to hunt. He doesn't have the natural oils in his feathers to dry out, so he has to spread his wings and air dry between dives. There are a few raptors in Merritt Island. There's several different types of hawk. There are bald eagles. And there are these. Osprey. I saw osprey all over the place. You may hear several names for osprey. Some people may call them river hawks, fish hawks, sea hawks. Here's something else you can call them. Very efficient hunters. Osprey live on water. They eat fish. You tend to see osprey early in the morning, late in the afternoon. Something I was surprised to see. It's very shallow water. It's only just a few feet deep, and I see this large splash. And it's a dolphin. From what I understand, there's somewhere between 200 and 800 dolphins that live inside the refuge, which I would expect to see them out in the ocean. It was kind of interesting to see something that big in the water, but yet here he is. There are a few times when I go birding that I do not see large numbers of coots. I see them all the time. When you are calling your neighbor, or your neighbor is calling you a crazy old coot, calling you one of these. Coots look like they're ducks. They mix with ducks, but they're not ducks. Their feet are not webbed. They don't waddle when they walk on ground. Chances are you go out, you're going to see lots of them. Please take a moment to click that like and subscribe button. I really enjoy sharing my experiences, and I'd like you to be a part of that. As this trip comes to a close, I sat on Wildlife Drive and watched the sunset, fitting in to a great trip. But before I go, I will leave you with these. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Please tune in.